The knock came like a question I'd already answered. 3 sharp taps. Then a pause. Then 2 more lighter, like whoever stood outside was trying not to sound desperate. I set my tea down without hurrying. I didn't need to check the peephole to know who it was. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you. The hallway light bled under my door in a thin, steady stripe. My apartment was quiet behind me, clean counters. Folded throw on the couch. The soft hum of the refrigerator like a heartbeat that belonged to no one but me. I opened the door anyway. My mother stood there as if the years had finally caught up to her all at once. Her hair, once dyed an insistent chestnut, had gone grey in uneven streaks. Her mascara had run down her cheeks in 2 dark commas. She held her purse to her chest with both hands like it was a life vest. Beside her was my stepfather, Dean, looking smaller than I remembered. His shoulders were rounded, his face hollowed out, as if something inside him had been scooped away. And behind them, half hidden, as if he still hoped I wouldn't see him, was my brother Corbin. Corbin's eyes were red, not from a cold, from crying. For a moment, no one spoke. I felt it first in my body, not my mind. The old, familiar tightening right under my ribs. The reflex that had kept me quiet for years. The instinct to brace for impact. But then my apartment breathed around me. My space, my rules, and the tightening loosened. My mother's lips trembled. Leora. The way she said my name was almost reverent. Like she'd practiced it in the car. Like she expected it to unlock something in me. I rested my hand on the edge of the door. Why are you here? Dean's throat bobbed. We just need to talk. Corbin swallowed hard, eyes flicking past me into my living room. At the artwork on the walls, the hardwood floors, the soft, expensive light. He was calculating. He always had been. My mother took a step forward, as if she could walk right back into my life by force of want. Please. Just 5 minutes. I didn't move aside. I didn't invite them in. I'd learned, slowly, painfully, that invitations were not small things. 5 minutes, I said. Here, my mother blinked. The hallway was cold. Not cruel cold, just winter stone cold. The kind that made you aware of your bones. Dean's jaw tightened with humiliation. I watched him swallow it. Corbin let out a shaky breath. Leora, we don't have anywhere else. There it was. Not, we're sorry. Not, we were wrong. Not even, we miss you. We don't have anywhere else. I nodded once, as if he'd offered a business proposal. Say what you came to say. My mother's fingers dug into her purse. I know you hate me. I didn't correct her. Hate would have meant I still gave her the power to bruise me. Dean's voice cracked. Gail hasn't slept in days. My mother flinched at her name like it was a slap. She kept going anyway, words spilling faster now, as if speed could outrun shame. We got a notice, she said. An eviction notice. Foreclosure. I don't even know what it's called. They said, she sucked in air. They said we have 10 days. 10 days, Leora. Corbin's face twisted. Mom, it's not 10. It's... Dean cut him off with a look. It's soon. My mother's eyes shone. We're going to lose the house. I held her gaze. In my memory, that house was not a home. It was a set. A living room where I learned to sit smaller. A kitchen where I learned to swallow my hunger. A hallway where I learned to keep my footsteps silent, so I wouldn't be accused of making a scene. And one night, one single sentence that had snapped my life into 2 clean pieces. 17. I could still taste it. My mother's voice had been tired, irritated, sharp in the way that meant she was done pretending to be kind. I'd come home with a letter in my hand. Not a love letter. A scholarship application. A chance. She'd been sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of bills, and I'd said, softly, "I think I can get out. I think I can." She didn't even look up. "Leora," she'd said, "the way you say a bad smell, you were a mistake. The family mistake. Do you know how much easier it would have been if you'd never happened?" Dean had been in the doorway then too. He'd listened. Corbin had been upstairs blasting music. And I'd stood there with that letter in my hand, the paper suddenly too thin to hold my life. I didn't cry. I'd surprised myself with that. I just set the letter on the table, right beside the bills, and said, very calmly, "Okay." Then I'd gone to my room and packed. Not dramatically, not slamming drawers, just quietly choosing what was mine. I'd left a note. I'd written it like I was writing to strangers. "I will not be spoken to like that again." I'd walked out before dawn. No screams. No chasing. No apology. Just the sound of my own breath and a streetlight humming like a witness. Now, in the hallway outside my apartment, my mother's tears fell harder, as if she could pour them into the space between us and flood her way back in. Dean said, "We didn't know who else to come to." I almost laughed. They'd known who else to come to for years. They'd come to me when they needed someone to cover a bill, when they needed someone to babysit, when they needed someone to be the quiet backbone while Corbin took the spotlight. But when I needed a mother, a father, a family, they told me I was a mistake. I kept my face still. Why now? Corbin's mouth opened, closed. He looked at my mother like she told him to do the talking. He finally said, because it's bad. Because we're drowning." "Drowning in what?" I asked. Dean's eyes flicked away. "Debt." Corbin's shoulders lifted in a helpless shrug that used to charm teachers. "Stuff happened. Things got hard. My mother rushed in, desperate to soften it. Your brother, he tried. He really tried. And then the shop cut hours and his back went out, and I got laid off. And the payments just..." She made a squeezing motion with her hands. "It just kept tightening." She swallowed, voice shaking. "We thought we could catch up." I nodded slowly. "And you can't." The truth fell between us, simple and heavy. My mother wiped her face with the back of her hand like she was angry at her own tears. "Leora, I know you're doing well." "How do you know that?" I asked. Corbin answered too quickly. "People talk." Of course they did. Success is loud even when you keep it quiet. I didn't post luxury vacations. I didn't pose in front of cars. I didn't announce promotions. But I bought my mother's grocery store gift cards anonymously for years. I paid for Corbin's community college classes twice quietly, directly to the school. Because I didn't trust him with money. I sent Dean's physical therapy clinic a check under a different name. And I never told them. Not because I was noble. Because I was still hoping some small, stubborn part of me, that if I could prove my usefulness, they might someday treat me like I belonged. Then, 2 years ago, my mother had left me a voicemail on my birthday. Not to say happy birthday. To say, "Corbin's rent is short. If you're going to be selfish, just say so." That voicemail was the moment the last soft thread inside me snapped. I stopped sending anything. I didn't announce it. I just stopped. And now they were here. My mother's voice went quiet, almost childlike. "We just need help. Just this once." Dean stared at the floor. Corbin's eyes stayed on my apartment like he was imagining himself on my couch. I leaned my shoulder against the doorframe. "What do you want from me?" My mother's breath hitched. Money. There it was again. Not forgiveness. Not repair. Money. I didn't flinch. "How much?" Dean finally looked up, and in his eyes I saw something I hadn't expected. Fear. Not fear of me. Fear of what would happen if I said no. He said, "Horse, we're behind by 4 months. Plus the fees." "The bank," Corbin cut in, voice sharper now. "They reacting like they don't care if we end up on the street." I looked at him. Banks care about numbers, not people. You know that. He blinked. What? I watched his confusion, and it struck me, with a kind of cold clarity, how little he knew me. He still saw me as the quiet sister who did homework at the kitchen table and cleaned up after him. He didn't know I de-built my life in rooms where numbers were the only language. He didn't know I could read contracts like other people read novels. My mother whispered, "Please, Leora." Her voice was thin, scraped raw, and I felt it an ache that wasn't love, exactly, but something close to grief. Grief for the girl I'd been, the one who would have said yes just to be wanted. I exhaled slowly. "I'm not inviting you in." My mother nodded frantically. No, we don't need to." "I'm not giving you a check," I continued. Corbin's face hardened. "So you're just going to let us lose everything?" My mother snapped at him, desperate to keep him from ruining this. "Corbin," he turned on her. "What? She's standing here acting like she's above us." His eyes flashed back to me. "You think you're better than us now?" There it was. The old accusation. The one that kept me small. I studied him the way I would study a problem on a whiteboard. Not with anger, with precision. "I don't think I'm better," I said quietly. "I think I'm different. Because I learned what you never had to." Dean's voice was rough. "Leora, please, don't do this." "Do what?" I asked. "Tell the truth?" My mother's shoulders sagged. "We're sorry," she whispered. It was the first time she'd said it. It landed like a coin tossed onto a table, small, metallic, not nearly enough to pay the debt. I held her gaze. "Sorry for what?" Her mouth opened and nothing came out. She'd said sorry like people say bless you. Reflex, not responsibility. Corbin scoffed. "Mum, don't. She's enjoying this." I turned my eyes back to him. "If I were enjoying it, you wouldn't still be standing here." Silence. My mother's breath shook. Dean's hands clenched into fists, then unclenched, like he was trying to remember how to be the adult in a room. I straightened. "Here's what I can do." My mother's eyes widened with hope so fast it almost made me nauseous. I continued anyway. "I can look at the documents. I can call the bank. I can talk to an attorney if necessary. I can see what's real and what's panic." Corbin let out a breath. "So you will help?" I said I can look, I corrected. Dean's voice was desperate. "We brought them." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a crumpled envelope. It was thick, stressed, like their whole life had been folded and unfolded too many times. He held it out like an offering. I didn't take it. Not yet. I asked my mother again, softly. "Sorry for what?" Her eyes filled. She whispered, "For what I said." "Say it," I replied. Dean's head snapped up. Corbin frowned, confused. My mother's mouth trembled. "Leora." "Say it," I repeated. Not loud, not cruel, just steady. Because I had learned something in therapy that changed my life. Closure is not something you beg for. It's something you require. My mother's voice cracked. "I called you the family mistake." The words hung in the cold hallway. Dean flinched. Corbin's eyes widened like he'd never heard it spoken out loud. My mother's shoulders shook. "I said you shouldn't have happened." Her breath hitched. And it wasn't true. "It was convenient," I said. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. I didn't blink. "It was easier to blame me for how hard your life felt than to look at the choices you made." Dean's face went grey. Corbin's voice came out small. "Mom." My mother sobbed once, sharp and ugly. I was tired. I was scared. You were an adult, I said. I let the sentence finish itself. A quiet boundary. My mother nodded, tears sliding. Yes, I waited. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry, she whispered again, and this time it sounded like it cost her something. Good. I turned my gaze to Dean. He looked away. Did you hear it? I asked him. His jaw worked. Yes. And you did nothing, I said. He flinched like he wanted to deny it. He couldn't. His shoulders collapsed. I did nothing, he admitted. I nodded once. Then I looked at Corbin. He stared at his shoes. Did you know? I asked. His voice was rough. No, I believed him. Not because he was innocent. Because he never paid enough attention to anyone else to notice cruelty, unless it was aimed at him. I held out my hand. Give me the papers. Dean almost dropped the envelope in his rush to place it in my palm. The paper felt warm from his body. I could have stepped back into my apartment, shut the door, read everything alone. That would have been safe. But safety wasn't my goal anymore. Clarity was. I turned and walked to the small console table just inside my doorway. I didn't invite them in. I didn't need to. I simply stayed where they could see me, the door open, the boundary clear. I pulled out the documents and skimmed. Foreclosure notice. Notice of default, late fees. A second mortgage I didn't recognize. I frowned. Dean's voice came tentative. We took out a line of credit. For what? I asked, eyes still on the paper. My mother's voice was thin. The roof. I didn't look up. The roof doesn't cost that much. Silence. I turned a page. There it was. A signature. Corbin's. My gaze lifted to him. His face went pale. Corbin, I said, calm as ice water. What is this? He swallowed. I was going to pay it back. For what? His eyes darted to my mother. She shook her head, crying harder now. He thought he could fix it. He said it was temporary. Dean's voice broke. He said he had a job lined up. Corbin's face twisted. I did. Things didn't. I looked back down. The numbers were clear. Gambling debt? No, not exactly. A business investment fund. He'd tried to chase easy money, and he'd used their house like collateral. My chest went tight again, not from fear, from a different kind of pain. The familiar realization. Even now, even on the edge of losing everything, they were still cleaning up after him. And they'd come to me to clean up after all of them. I set the papers down neatly. My mother whispered, Leora, I didn't know. He didn't tell me everything. Dean rubbed his face with shaking hands. We're not asking you to fix Corbin. We're asking you to save the house. Corbin's voice rose, defensive. I was trying to help. If it had worked, you'd all be thanking me. I looked at him and my voice stayed soft. That's the problem. You only know how to be loved if you're being praised. He flinched. My mother's sob caught. Dean stared at the floor like he'd been punched. I exhaled slowly, steadying the air inside me. You're here, I said, because you ran out of options. My mother nodded, tears falling. Yes. And you think I'm your last option? I continued. Dean whispered, We know you're smart. We know you can. I held up a finger, stopping him without raising my voice. Don't flatter me now. It's too late for that. The words were not cruel. They were accurate. I picked up my phone. Corbin's eyes widened. Who are you calling? I tapped the screen. The bank. My mother's mouth fell open. Right now? Yes, I said, because one thing I refused to do was drown in their emotions. Emotion was their favorite currency. It was how they'd always tried to buy me. I put the phone to my ear and navigated the automated menu with the calmness of someone who'd done this 100 times. Dean watched me like he was seeing me for the first time. Corbin watched me like he was watching a magician. My mother watched me like she was watching the child she'd thrown away turn into a stranger. When the bank representative finally came on, I asked for the payoff amount, the reinstatement options, the timeline. I asked about hardship programs. I asked about the second lien. I asked questions that made the representative pause, then answer more carefully. Because people respond differently when they realize you speak their language. I ended the call and looked at my family. They were all holding their breath. I set my phone down gently. Here's the truth, I said. You're not being evicted in 10 days. You have a window. But it's narrow. Dean sagged with relief. My mother's shoulders shook. Corbin let out a breath like he'd been saved. Then I added, and the second mortgage is the problem. Without that, you could have caught up. With it? You're bleeding. Corbin's face twisted. I said I was going to pay it back. When? I asked. He opened his mouth. Nothing. I nodded once. Okay. The calmness in my voice seemed to confuse them more than anger would have. My mother whispered, So, can you help? I stared at her. I thought of 17-year-old me, standing in that kitchen, holding a letter like a lifeline. I thought of the nights I'd worked double shifts in college, cleaning tables after closing so I could afford textbooks. I thought of the first time I de-signed a lease with my own name on it, and cried in the empty room because no one could kick me out. I thought of every time I looked at my phone and hoped, stupidly, for a message that said, "We were wrong." And I thought of the voicemail on my birthday. If you're going to be selfish, just say so. I let my face stay still. I can, I said. My mother's relief was instant. She reached forward, hands trembling, as if she wanted to touch me. I stepped back. But not the way you think, I continued. Dean frowned. What do you mean? I lifted my chin slightly. I'm not giving you money to pour into a hole and hope it becomes a foundation. Corbin's mouth tightened. So what? You're going to lecture us? No, I said. I'm going to set terms. My mother whispered. Anything. I studied her. She meant it. Not out of love, out of fear. Fear is a powerful motivator. It's just not the kind that builds trust. I said, First, you are not moving into my home. Corbin's eyes flashed. We weren't. Dean cut him off, voice strained. Of course not. My mother nodded too fast. No. They were lying. Or maybe they weren't. That they'd thought about it. I continued. Second, if I help you save the house will not be in your name alone anymore. Dean blinked. What? Corbin's voice sharpened. Are you serious? I met his eyes calmly. Yes. My mother's tears slowed. Leora, it's our home. It's collateral, I corrected. Dean's face tightened with shame. We can pay you back. I didn't laugh. I didn't mock. I simply asked, with what? Silence. The answer was nothing. I said, if I pay to reinstate the mortgage, I will put the house into a trust. A legal structure that protects it from impulsive decisions. Corbin bristled. Impulsive? I looked at the second mortgage paperwork. This is impulse. His face flushed. I said I was trying. I know, I said. And trying without learning is how people repeat the same damage. Dean's shoulders sagged. So you'll own our house. I'll protect it, I said. My mother's voice went small. And what do we do? You live there, I replied. You pay rent to the trust. Not because I want your money. Because you need to learn the difference between having a home and being entitled to one. My mother's eyes widened like she'd never heard the word entitled applied to her. Dean's throat worked. And if we can't pay? I said, then we'll figure out a plan. But the plan will be honest. It will be on paper. It will be accountable. Corbin shook his head, anger building. This is messed up. I looked at him steady. What's messed up is using your parents' home to gamble on a fantasy, and then acting offended when there are consequences. His face cracked. For a moment, something real slipped through. He whispered, "You don't get it." I tilted my head. "Explain." He swallowed. His eyes flashed with something like shame. I felt like I had to do something. Like I had to prove I wasn't a screw-up. My mother let out a broken sound. Dean closed his eyes. Corbin's voice shook. "You left. And you came back as this success story. And Mom talks about you like you're this ghost she can't catch. And I'm still there. Still stuck." He choked. And suddenly, for the first time in my life, I saw him not as my rival for love, but as another child who'd been raised in a house where love was conditional. He finished, barely audible. "I thought if I made money fast, they'd look at me the way they look at you." The hallway went quiet. My mother whispered, "Oh, Corbin." Dean's shoulders shook once. I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness. Understanding. Understanding doesn't erase harm, but it does change the shape of it. I exhaled slowly. "I get it," I said. Corbin's eyes snapped to mine. "I do," I repeated. "And I'm still not handing you cash." A laugh escaped him, bitter and wet. "Fair." I nodded once. Then I added the third term. "You all go to counseling." My mother's face tightened. "Counseling?" "Yes," I said. "Family therapy. And individual therapy. Corbin, you especially." Corbin's jaw clenched. I held his gaze. "If you don't learn a different way to handle fear, you will keep trying to outrun it with risk, and you'll drag everyone down with you." Dean's voice was hoarse. "We can't afford. I'll pay," I said. "Directly to the provider." My mother's eyes filled again. "Leora," I held up a hand. "This is not a gift. This is a requirement." She swallowed. I could see her pride fighting her desperation. Desperation was winning. I said the fourth term gently, because I knew it would cut deepest. "You stop telling people I abandoned you." My mother flinched. Dean looked down. Corbin went still. My voice stayed calm. "I didn't abandon you. I left a house where I was told I shouldn't exist. There's a difference." My mother's face crumpled. "We didn't." "You did," I said. I let the words land, because part of my quiet revenge was simple. I would no longer carry their story for them. I continued, "If anyone asks, you tell the truth. You tell them you hurt me. You tell them you pushed me away. You tell them you're trying to repair it." Dean's voice was barely a whisper. "People will judge us." I looked at him. I was judged for years for something I didn't do. Silence. My mother's eyes searched my face like she was trying to find the daughter she remembered. She found someone else. Someone who didn't need her approval. And she finally nodded. "Okay," she whispered. Corbin rubbed his face with his hands, breathing hard. "Okay," he echoed. Dean nodded too, the motion stiff. "Okay." I stared at them. 17-year-old me would have collapsed with relief. Would have said yes to anything. Would have begged for scraps. Adult me simply nodded. Then I said, "I need one more thing." My mother's voice shook. "What?" I looked at her directly. "You don't get to call me when you need saving. If you want a relationship, you call me when you don't need anything." Her mouth opened. Closed. Tears spilled again. But different now. Not just fear. Regret. She whispered, "I don't know how." I believed her. And that was the tragedy. I said, "Then you'll learn." Like I did. My mother pressed her hand to her mouth and cried silently. Dean stared at the envelope like it might swallow him. Corbin's eyes burned. Do you even want us? He asked. The question surprised me. It was the first time he'd asked me something that wasn't about himself. I swallowed slow. I want peace, I said honestly. I want to stop waking up with your voices in my head. His face tightened. I continued, softer. And I want to know that if we're going to be in each other's lives, it won't cost me my self-respect. My mother's shoulders shook. Dean whispered, It shouldn't have. No, I agreed. It shouldn't have. I stepped back into my apartment and opened a drawer in the console table. Inside was a folder. Not the bank paperwork. Not legal documents. Something else. Receipts. I brought it out and held it up. My mother stared. Dean's brow furrowed. Corbin's eyes widened. I opened it. Pages of printed transfer confirmations. Paid invoices. Direct payments to the school. Anonymous grocery gift card receipts. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Dean staggered back a half step. Corbin's voice came out ragged. What is that? I flipped to the first page. Do you remember? I asked my mother. How you said the house felt like it miraculously stayed afloat for a while after I left. Her eyes were huge. Leora. I nodded once. That wasn't a miracle. Dean's face drained of color. Corbin stared like he couldn't breathe. I kept my voice even. For years, after you told me I shouldn't have happened, I still sent help. Quietly. Because a part of me was still hoping you'd change. My mother let out a sound that was half sob, half gasp. I didn't know. I know, I said. I flipped another page. This, I said, tapping the paper, is the last payment I made. 2 years ago. Right after your voicemail on my birthday. My mother's eyes squeezed shut. Dina's shoulders slumped like a man finally feeling the weight of what he'd let happen. Corbin whispered, You were paying. Yes, I said. His voice cracked. Why? I looked at him, and my honesty was a blade I'd once been afraid to use. Because I was trained to believe my value was what I could provide, I said. Because if I wasn't useful, I thought I was unlovable. My mother sobbed, ugly and open now. Oh my God. Dean's eyes filled, and he blinked hard like he hated tears. Corbin stared at the papers, then at me, like he was seeing the shape of our family for the first time. I closed the folder. And then I stopped, I said simply, because I got tired of paying for the right to be treated poorly. My mother's voice broke. Leora, I'm not telling you this to punish you, I said. I'm telling you because you came to my door thinking you were asking for something new. I held her gaze. You're not, I continued. You're asking for what I already gave you. And you're shocked I have boundaries now. Dean whispered. We didn't deserve that. No, I agreed. Corbin wiped his face with his sleeve like he was a child again. I didn't know, he said. I swear I didn't know. I studied him. He meant it. He was messy and selfish and reckless. But in this moment he was also human. I nodded once. Then you'll do better now that you do. He swallowed hard. How? I replied. By not making me responsible for your shame. He flinched. Good. Because shame is only useful if it teaches you where your values are. I slid the folder back into the drawer and closed it. Then I reached for my phone again. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you. My mother blinked like she'd been yanked out of water. Dean sniffed, eyes red. Corbin stared at me raw. I said, I'll have my attorney draft the trust paperwork tomorrow. Dean's eyes widened. Attorney? Yes, I replied. I don't do big decisions on tears. My mother's lips trembled. You really have an attorney? I almost smiled. Almost. I have a life, I said. A simple sentence. But it landed like an earthquake. Dean's voice broke. We should have been part of it. My mother whispered, I want to be. I stared at her. And in that moment, I realized something that felt like stepping into sunlight. She wasn't asking because she loved me. She was asking because she finally saw what she'd lost. And maybe, someday, that could grow into love. But I refused to build my healing on maybes. I said, you can be part of my life if you can respect it. Not if you want to consume it. My mother nodded, crying. Yes. Dean's throat worked. We'll sign whatever. Corbin's voice was hoarse. I'll go to therapy. I looked at him. And? He swallowed hard. And I'll get a second job. I'll pay rent. I'll pay you back. I held his gaze. Not me, the trust. And you'll pay because you live there. Not because you're trying to buy forgiveness. He nodded quickly, tears spilling again. Okay. My mother stepped forward, trembling. Leora, can I? She reached out, not touching me, just hovering. I watched her hand. The hand that used to pull my hair back too hard when she brushed it. The hand that used to shove a plate into my chest when guests were over, telling me to smile. The hand that had never once reached for me in apology. I breathed in. Then slowly I did something that surprised us both. I placed my own hand over hers. Not squeezing, not forgiving, just acknowledging. Her breath hitched. Dean went still. Corbin's eyes widened. My mother whispered, Thank you. I looked at her, calm. Don't thank me yet. Her face crumpled. I continued, the hard part isn't paperwork. The hard part is changing who you are when you're scared. Dean nodded, voice rough. We'll try. I released my mother's hand. Then I stepped back. The boundary returned. Clear. I said, go home. Get some sleep. Tomorrow you'll email me the full account statements and every document you have. No hiding anything. If I find out you lied or left something out, I'm done. My mother nodded quickly. We won't, Corbin whispered. We won't. Dean's voice cracked. We won't. I stared at them for a long moment. This was the part of the story where people expect a hug. A reconciliation scene. A swelling soundtrack. But real repair is quieter than that. Real repair starts with accountability. And I was not interested in a performance. My mother wiped her face and said very softly, Leora, do you have people? The question startled me, not because it was kind, because it was late. I let myself answer honestly. Yes, I said. Dean's eyes flicked up. Corbin looked confused. My mother's voice was small. Friends? I nodded. Friends, a partner, a therapist, colleagues who respect me. Her face twisted with grief. You built all that without us. I held her gaze. I had to. She sobbed once, then steadied herself like she was trying, finally, to be the woman she'd pretended to be when I was young. I'm glad, she whispered, and I heard the truth in it, even through the pain. I nodded once. Then I said, good night. Dean opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else. An apology. A thank you. A plea. He didn't. He simply nodded. Corbin stared at me, eyes swollen. Leora, I'm sorry, he said. I paused. I didn't soften. But I didn't dismiss him either. Be sorry in your actions, I replied. He nodded like that was the first real instruction anyone had ever given him. My mother whispered, I love you. The words struck me like a door opening onto an empty room. Because I wanted them. and I didn't trust them. So I chose the only honest response. I hope you learn how to, I said quietly. My mother's face collapsed. Dean gently guided her down the hallway. Corbin followed, wiping his face with his sleeve, shoulders shaking. When they reached the elevator, my mother turned back one last time. She looked at me like she was seeing the cost of her sentence for the first time. Then the elevator doors slid shut. I closed my apartment door. The lock clicked, and in the silence that followed, I leaned my forehead against the wood and let myself feel the thing I'd been holding back. Not rage, not triumph. Relief. Relief that the 17-year-old girl inside me had finally grown into someone who could answer the knock without collapsing. I walked back into my living room. I picked up my tea. It had gone cold. I drank it anyway, because it tasted like something I'd earned. The next morning would be paperwork and attorneys and hard conversations. But tonight, I did something I'd never done before. I chose myself. And for the first time, the word mistake didn't echo inside me. It fell silent. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.